Welcome back to Healing Through Spirituality. I'm Dr. Michelle Greenwell, and my background in bioenergetic wellness and complementary and integrative health is going to help lead you today on a journey of discovery into the deeper architecture of healing. And where we're going to go is into energy, frequency, memory, and consciousness as it meets the body. This episode builds directly on what we explored in episode 1. So if you didn't check that out, then you have a chance to go back and do that. But also we're looking at the spirituality, not as something abstract or in the woo, but more along the energetic wiring of being human. And with that, we invite you to explore what spirituality means with the operating systems of human experience and how our intuition, our energy, and our inner awareness are not optional, but really essential for well-being. Today, we're going to take the next step, and this is where the deep work starts to happen. So let me do a little recap. Episode 1, we spoke about disconnection, how modern life pulls us away from our inner signals, our intuition, and our spiritual intelligence. And we explored how spirituality is not a belief system, but a lived, embodied experience. And we introduced the idea that healing begins not by fixing ourselves, but by remembering who we are. And Anne and I have been going back with the context of, in quotes, remembering rather than thinking. And it sure changes the way you start to reflect on some of the ideas that you have. So today we're going to explore what remembering means when we reach into the quantum level of the body. And Anne is going to bring us into this kind of a conversation. And I just want to give you a little bit of background. She is a spiritual mentor and the founder of Solistara, which you can see behind her there. And she brings a compassionate, embodied understanding about energy, the nervous system, memory, and spiritual integration. Her work gently bridges ancient wisdom with modern life, helping people feel safe enough to listen to what their body, their energy field, and their soul is communicating. So Anne, thank you for continuing the conversations where we're not on the camera, but also for when we're in the interviews. I so appreciate the insights that you bring.
Thank you for having me, Michelle. It's always great to be with you.
So we're going to dive into our tea ritual here. And this is to set you up, the listener, for a healing session while you listen. And Anne, I believe you've packed some water today. Do you want to talk about what kind of water you've got there?
Well, it's blessed water. As I see water also as part of our being, we're all connected. So I would say my being, but it's also your being. So water is an integral part of who we are, as we also are 70% of water, and it carries the frequencies. So by blessing your water daily, you basically infuse it or charge it with the frequencies that you want to be expanding on during that day. So for me, it would be like balance, love, and just calmness. And you bless your water in the morning, and then each sip you take, it's also important that you drink with intention, not just like I'm thirsty, good, that's me done, but that each sip that you take, that you're really aware that this is going to recharge your cellular memory back to that frequency of what you blessed it with, what you charged it with. So I always bless the water I drink, but then I carry it out also to the entire waters of Mother Earth, who desperately need our blessing, love, and light this day and age.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I just want people to think about as they reach for that water bottle and that habit of guzzling it back, to just take a moment and think about what Anne has brought to you and the opportunity that you have to change one simple little habit, and just empower yourself in such an incredible way. Okay, so we've got water, and today I wanted to think about how we were going to go into the quantum layers of healing. And with the tea, I chose the Golden Serenity tea, which is a combination of black and green, which is interesting. But it's also a way for us to be grounded, integrated, and have gentle strength, which will align with our conversation. So 2 of the key ingredients I want to bring forward today is the bale nut and turmeric. And bale nut is not something that most people are going to have in a tea, but I wanted you to know the power of it. It's long been honored in spiritual and healing traditions as a protector of the inner temple. Energetically, it supports containment and wholeness, and it reminds us that healing doesn't require force, it requires safety. And it helps the body to feel held, supported, and steady enough so it can soften in its defenses or in its work to try to keep us where we need to be. Bale nut is actually a fruit, comes from Asia, and it's known as the applewood or the quince. And it has a hard shell, but a very soft interior. And just to keep that in mind, because sometimes we do build ourselves a hard shell and it's hard to get to the softness on the inside. So if that's something you're recognizing, then you can consider how getting to that soft interior, what you're going to discover. And I'm going to partner that with turmeric, which is an alchemist for spirituality. It represents transformation through warmth and clarity. It helps move stagnation through, illuminate what's been hidden, and then restore flow without in an aggressive kind of manner. And it teaches us that change can be both powerful and gentle. So when we put these 2 together, they're about containment and movement, grounding with illumination, and steadiness and transformation. So as you hold your cup, you can bring your awareness to your breath. Notice where you might still be pushing to try to get things done. Notice where you might allow yourself to soften instead. And the affirmation that comes with the tea, I'm just going to lift mine up so I can hug my mug, is soften the desire to push through. With confidence and an authentic self-love, welcome peace within. So take a slow breath. Let that just fill you up. And then enjoy the fragrance that's coming from your tea or connecting with the water. Take your sip and let the tea or the water signal to your body that it is safe to heal. And in the time we're spending with Ann today, you're going to be able to change the quantumness of what is going on for the body. Cheers.
Beautiful.
I always love this blend when I come back to it.
Yeah. That's how
okay.
easy transformation can happen, just by sipping intentionally on your cup of tea or blessed water.
And it's so lovely because it's not a habit you have to work at. It
No.
just is.
Yeah, it is exactly.
Unless you walk in that dehydration line where you're starving yourself of hydration, then it might be a little bit of work to move your pattern around. But when you are hydrating all day long, it just, so empowering, so simple. Yeah. Okay, so let's get started. We're looking at the foundational truth. So healing doesn't start in the physical body. This is where most people are spending their time, and they always try to fix from the physical aspect. And what we want to shine a light on is healing coming from the energetic field. So at the quantum level, this is everything to do with frequency. Our thoughts carry frequency, our emotions carry frequency, beliefs, memories, trauma, and intention all transmit information through the body. And we did that with the tea already, so you can see how we brought that from the outside in. So the pattern that often unfolds, and this is an interesting pattern, usually it goes, you have a thought, you have an emotion that goes with it, some kind of energy shift happens, and then there's a physical experience. However, this isn't the true trajectory. It is the one that's been identified and that we've been using. So we have energy in our biofield, the experience of external influences as well as internal influences. So us coming into your home today or into your ears, however you're listening to the podcast, Ann and I connecting, the initial energetic connection is what's happening first. And then coherence can happen between us, or discord can happen. And this moves us then into our thoughts and our feelings, as well as our physical experience. But you can't have one without the other. So there has to be some kind of a connection on the outside. And when we only work at the physical level, you're at the final place of expression rather than the beginning. And this is where I want to start Ann in the conversation for exploring what this coherence means and how the systems operate from this quantum field. Oh, small question, Ann. Can you share some insight, please?
Where shall we start? Yeah, I think you explained it already beautifully, and exactly that is what I would say. Like, everything is energy, and with that awareness, that as soon as we capture that everything is energy and frequency, and that we all part of that connected web, that can already do a lot of shifting. Because when, for instance, trauma sets in, to me that is happening on all layers. Like you mentioned, it's not just on the physical, but what happened is that beautiful frequency that in out there in the quantum field is very in flow, very expansive, very gentle. As soon as that hits the body, the 3D reality, and before that it will pass our mental and emotional layer of our being, that frequency, that flow, that gentleness, that kind of narrows, and that becomes very contracted and hard. And that's what then gives that fragment within our body, that gives that shift of the trigger. So it's the energy of the situation, basically. But to know that it's only an energy, and as long as we don't identify ourselves with the energy, that brings the shift. Because for me, the identity that we all should carry is the identity of God, God creator, because ultimately that's what everyone, every human being is. We're all fractals of the divine source, you can call it. So you are, I am God, I can say that so proudly, and I can bend my reality. So if you're not gonna become that identity of trauma or victim, if you're not glued to that emotion, and know that you can shift that reality any second of your life, you have a new chance, then you can shift that frequency. And that's basically what happens, is just a shift in frequency. And the easiest way, I think, is just to pause, because very often you get lost in how do I find that. But you just pause and you turn back to stillness. Whatever moment of the day, take a moment, sit down, close your eyes, take a couple of deep breaths into your heart space, and you can come back to that stillness, because it's in our heart space, our chakra, that our soul, fragment of our soul lives. And so when we can breathe into that and connect back to that, automatically the nervous system feels this as an invitation to, it's safe, it's okay. When you place then your hand on your heart or anywhere on your body, you give yourself that sign from it's safe, it's all right. And just for a moment, breathe in and override that system that's getting you out of balance and low frequency, to get that back online, as I would say, as a Wi-Fi signal. And yeah, pick up from there. And initially, you will have to do that many times. You won't find that is a coherent state of being throughout the day, but ultimately it will be. You will see your life shifting, and that's the most beautiful experience. And I think it's a gift for us to be walking on the earth right now in this day and age, because humanity is waking up again to that interconnectedness, that we're not alone, and we have that unlimited capacity in us. We are all limitless, but throughout the centuries, we were taught to believe that we have our limits as a human being, but we don't, and that's fantastic.
Wow, you said something really, well, you said several things profound, but but really interesting, especially with if you think about what's been happening on the news. And so if you get locked into all the changes that are happening, the fighting that's going on, the changes of countries and all these things that are happening, but then you move over to this limitless piece and being at a time when we have so much possibility. And it's hard to think that when you're listening to the news because it's delivered in a certain way. But when you start to think in this term, and then you think of how can I be a part of that wholeness that allows it to continue to shine in that way. So as you're listening, rather, the morning doomsday as you're listening to the news can hit you. But when you stop and you start thinking in this quantum way, it's completely different. And then you can start to celebrate. Yes, these are challenging times for living, but challenging times for our coherence and our energy. It's at a place where it's hasn't been in a long time, or that we've been aware of for a long time, and we're moving into that. Yeah, thank you, Anne.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, exactly what you said about that daily chaos, which is a reality. But this is how I see it, because time and space is an illusion. So there are different timelines as we exit that 3D density. And so we humans are sovereign beings, so we can choose. Do we choose the timeline of fear, or do we choose the timeline of love? Because ultimately, pure love is the highest frequency that transits and transforms everything. And I feel that now on Earth, we have these two groups almost of humans that walk. Do I get caught up in the news, or do I just, okay, I acknowledge what's going on. I don't have to live in a grotto and cut myself off, but it doesn't touch me. It's there. And it's not that I'm selfish or so, but what you can do to help is to go in your heart and use your own pure love energy, your light, and send that into the world. And not just to the humans, but everyone needs it, the animals, the earth herself, and beyond. It is shocking to know that in our generation, like the last 50 years, that's almost our lifetime, we've lost 2/3 of animal species in 50 years time. I mean, that to me also hurts as much as a war wherever in the world, but you don't really hear about that on the news because it's not as close to the human as you and I. And but to be aware of that, and the more we come together in coherence and communities with group calls, sending out love, meditations, that's the peaceful new way of shifting the earth's reality. And I feel this is the next coming years is gonna really escalate more and more, so it's really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you also bringing in that idea of we do this together, we do this
Yeah.
in community. And as you said, the more we come into these different kinds of activities where we're meeting for meditation in a group, not by ourselves, but in a group, and we have activities we participate in that continue to bring us into that quantum field, then we have this capacity en masse to be in the same frequency of coherence. Rather than so many people try, they don't feel well, they pull themselves and isolate, they try to fix it themselves, they meditate by themselves, and it works to a point. but it doesn't provide an ease and flow that connects us to everyone else doing the same thing. And that opportunity to really be connecting with all those people who are working in that quantum space.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm. Yeah,
yeah,
it's like amplified frequency lift, and that's what we need exactly.
yeah. And I do know with my own programs, um, when we break between sessions or over the summer's always really hard because we don't want to part because we enjoy that weekly ritual of gathering and what it
Yeah.
means to us, but we still want to have the freedom of the summer. And when we come back together, it's not so much what happened in the activities we participated in, but how are we feeling? And that instant connection with everybody. It's like, we're back together. And now how can we lift each other up? Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and through awareness, there are little steps that one can do on a daily basis, individually as well, to keep that frequency up for yourself as well. So it's a nice balance, and then the more your light, the stronger that gets from within, the more it can be shared, and it's like the beautiful example of how one candle can lit a million candles, it's the same
Mm-hmm,
effect.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Um, I'm thinking now with that coherence. So we've got that coherence on the outside of the body. We have our interaction of our biofields with each other. And then we have how that resonates coming into the body. So again, not trying to fix from the physical, but actually feeling the resonance on the outside and then that transition in that happens. Um, so if we think about how our nervous system responds, a lot of times we're thinking about the nervous system as a physical structure. And, you can talk about the vagus nerve and how it runs through different parts of our body. And we're thinking about it as a structure, but it's a real energetic piece. So do you want to take us from the idea of coherence into the nervous system and that transition from the outside towards the inside?
Yeah, like you said, it's also a frequency. So nothing is an individual structure, everything is frequency. And so the way I would look at bringing like the nervous system back into a coherent state is through, for me, my first ritual I would do in the morning is grounding, because I feel so much healing comes from connecting with Mother Earth. And it doesn't have to be walking barefoot in your garden if you don't have one, which, by the way, I did this morning barefoot through the snow.
I was going to
Getting
say that there's snow here.
the rosemary for the tea, fresh rosemary tea. I really felt my
Mm.
guide said, you go out there and take off your shoes. And it was very cold, but it felt really good. But so connecting to the earth can just be visualizing, even if you're at home with your feet flat on the floor, that you just have your roots, your own root system dropping out of your feet and going deep down into the core of Mother Earth. And it's all a matter of where your focus and intention is. And if you just can focus, you're going to feel that frequency, and you're going to feel a shift in your being as the energy, as you breathe in then into your own body system. And just by breathing slowly and breathing in that support of the Mother Earth, automatically you create that feeling of safety within your central nervous system. So you shift from that fight flight mode to the how you call it, rest and digest. So it's safe, it's okay where you are. So for me, grounding is very important, either effectively outside or just inside. And then, like I said, just breathing and putting the focus on your heart, which, by the way, controls the mind. And it's not the other way around, but that's again something that we've been misinformed by for so long. And the heart is the seat of the soul as well. So connect again with your own soul, because that's where all the wisdom and the safety is. And just a cup, it doesn't have to be long, a couple of minutes a day, but just throughout the day, take that moment and just check in with yourself. Where am I, and on what timeline am I? Because maybe you start with the timeline of love in the morning that you consciously choose for, but then things happen, and oops, you notice in the afternoon you've rolled onto that timeline of fear again. But oh, it's time to shift and get back to your own identity of love. So it's a constant, you are in control, you are behind the wheel like a captain behind this wheel, and it's always possible to steer back to that moment of coherence, no matter what's happening outside of us, because that's really what comes in. And I notice that I work a lot with my clients, and it's very high sensitive souls that get affected a lot by the collective consciousness. So often you carry emotions or stagnation within your body that's not even your own, but taken on from the collective, because there is so much fear around us nowadays. So becoming aware of that and just having those little tools to shift them back, that will bring a big state of change of frequency.
I'm thinking as people consider who they hang around with
Yeah.
and what frequency those people hold. And if they are a grounding source for them, or if they create that fear base piece and they keep getting attracted to people who have that fear base for them. And just to be aware of that choice that you're making every time you go back to that same situation, and then seeing how you can move yourself over to those people in your life who lift you up or make you smile. Maybe it's laughter, ways that the field feels the vibrancy and then allows you, like you said, you can come back to it, but also wanting to be attracted to it and start to feel the lightness of it rather than the heaviness. Because sometimes we get attracted to that heavy and then we just keep going back to it. But it becomes effort. And then everything that we do is an effort choice to be able to lighten.
Yeah, exactly. That's often that you notice patterns are people attracting like the wrong partner over and over again, but often it's a pattern of an identity that they choose for themselves to be needed, or to overgiving, or not to be able to set your boundaries. But it's just roles, identities. It's not who you are in essence. And yeah, you can change that all the time. And like you said, by also consciously choosing who are in your life, which people are, and situations, and what brings you joy, what brings you happiness. And that's what the soul wants. It's just that lightness, that happy flow of being. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to take us towards a conversation, which is, we're really close to it, but about difficult situations or traumas that people have in their life, and then how their systems can hold them back for finding that coherence, or they continue to go to this disruptive pattern. We think about sometimes the traumas, I guess it's been coming to us in the media brings it in a psychological way. And that psychological then affects the physical. And that's kind of how it's been shared. We're talking about a different system for that. Do you want to just kind of hone in a little bit on that from the quantum perspective?
Yeah, again, it's all about frequency and how do I perceive it. For me, if you know and if you're aware that multidimensional support is in and outside of you, um, a lot is possible. But if we're looking at, for instance, trauma or emotions, that's all inside of us. So it's very important to go inside, and from there also to feel that it's interconnected, and cosmic, with the cosmos and with the planet Earth as well, where everything is coherence. And right here in the body, it's not just fractions, it's basically again a choice, because an emotion is a choice. And if you start to disidentify, let's say, for instance, people give themselves these labels: I have CVS, or I'm a CVS patient, I'm obese. So everybody, with our language is so powerful in creating our reality. And so instead of saying I am depressed, or I am sad, if you take that word and you say I do sad, then already it's a whole different frequency. It has a whole different feeling, and it doesn't impact you as much because it's not your identity. So becoming aware of your wording of what you experience, that's the first step actually. And write it down. I make a habit. I've got journals, and I make declarations to myself, and I almost shift identity daily, if not at least weekly. And I can really look back and read that, and you can jump timelines like that. So what you can do is you just imagine yourself, your avatar self, from a different timeline, who's very happy, has not a worry on the mind, is always dancing, or if you like ballet, and you just see that person and you bring that into your reality now. And writing is a very powerful tool for that. And the words you speak, be very careful, but don't identify yourself with that trauma, because that's the frequency, and all it is a frequency. And when we shift that, again, you bend your reality, and it's gone before you know it.
I like the phrase that you said, that just jump the timeline.
Yeah.
And sometimes we forget about that, that this doesn't have to be the trajectory. And how quickly we can identify with the things that went on in our life, how we grew up, situations we've had, and how we bring them back all the time. But if you put them into one pebble, and that experience is one pebble, you have a whole sandbox. And then the sandbox is full of all kinds of experiences, but that one pebble is like leading the charge. And so that opportunity to bring that coherence with all the other pebbles that are sitting there, that are resonating at a different frequency. You jump the timeline, you don't have to be sitting there and holding on to that one hardship, but you can move to such an incredible space.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm doing an experiment myself now in jumping timeline for my physical health, because for me, we have to look after everything from the physical to the emotional, mental, and spiritual maintenance. So spiritual health is very good for me, but I took now in control the physical health, and I just thinking, okay, what did I enjoy when I was around my 30s? I'm 55 now, and I loved. I was living in the US in Los Angeles, and I loved going jogging and rollerblading along the beach. So I took back that memory and I brought it back here, because for me, if you think I should go back to the gym, I have to start the gym. That's something that was ongoing for the whole past year. I didn't put the foot into the gym's door. But now I took myself back from that era where I was very fit, because I was out there on the beach every day. I took it back into my now timeline, and I've gradually started to doing home gym. And before I know it, now I'm doing it 3-4 times a week, and it's been ongoing for the past 2 months, and my body's just shifted automatically. I'm becoming stronger again, so I don't have these postmenopausal over 55 symptoms where everybody thinks it's normal because it's your age, and I never believed in that. And it's now an embodiment of this is how it works. And I mean, I'm still the weight as I was when I was 25, so it is all in the mind. And it's so funny how now I enjoy my exercises, feeling myself becoming stronger again. But without that strain, I have to do it. No, I just took myself from when I enjoyed doing it 25 years ago, and I put it in my nowadays life, and it really works. Of course, you need to you take the avatar, and then and automatically the action will follow what you need to do in order to achieve it. And that's it's a fun game, but it really works.
And again, too, it's a fun game,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
Instead
exactly.
of
Yeah, yeah.
because you could easily say, okay, new year, I've got to get back to the gym. That is just like a
Yeah, it doesn't
drudgery.
work. Yeah.
Yeah. But what game am I going to play? Yeah.
Yeah,
How do I play the game?
exactly. What did I enjoy? Just a memory, or what makes me happy, and take that, and the rest follows. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm picturing myself sliding down a cliff that I climbed up when we were canoeing as
Oh,
when I was
great.
young. And I go
Yeah.
soaking wet before we even started in the canoe ride and had to sit under a tarp. And then I think, but the idea of canoeing is so open to me and the opportunity to be on the water.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking about, I wonder how that little story about going down that cliff and then sitting soaking wet for the rest of the day has held me back from getting into the canoe. It just popped into my mind. It hasn't been
Yeah.
there for a long time, but I'm just bringing that forward for the listeners. Those little clues that come in what way are they playing a role, and how has that pebble become a rock instead of just a pebble in the sandbox? And how can you take those nuggets and pull them in and make them a part of the life that you're wanting to live?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the result you want for yourself. What is it that you want to create? Because it's possible. Yeah.
Okay, so let's shift our conversation a little bit into what the body remembers. So we know that the body is remembering everything. Now, that can be across many timelines, and it can also be our present day. But every time we have pushed ourselves through exhaustion, every time we've ignored pain, every time we've silenced our truth to stay safe or accepted, our experiences are stored as information in the biofield, as well as in our muscles, our fascia, the organs, and our posture. Our posture is a great way to know how we're doing. I always love it when my spine lifts and separates and opens, even as I'm doing it now, and it's like, oh, that feels so much better.
Yeah.
Um, how we feel when we get to those places. So, can you share a little bit about our focus on the signals that we get, and then the perspective that we kind of live by, just because of the signals we're listening to?
Yeah. I think signals are great because once we know their essence, basically their purpose, they can become our greatest allies. For me, you can look at it two ways. Like a signal can be, oh God, why me again? Why is that always there? Or it can be like, okay, what is this trying to tell me, and guide you into a soul-led choice. And that is obviously what I invite you to do, is when you have a signal, um, again, go inside. We always have to connect again within. And that's why I love my Taoist background, because the Taoists, the old Chinese healing method, they use a lot of joy and fun. And there is this beautiful inner smile meditation where you basically become best friends again with your organs. And once we get that practice of going within and listening, where is the signal, where is the trigger that wants to tell me something, and I'm really tuning to that, and then it's gonna tell you right here here is something that we need to look at. And then when we can start listening to the soul and ask our soul, what is it that this pattern wants to tell me? You're gonna slowly get the answers, because ultimately you already know. We have all the wisdom within us, because how I look at life is we all have had so many thousands of lifetimes before this one, and we've gathered so much wisdom, and also from our ancestors, and guided from our guides and the stars. We all have stardust within us, so that wisdom is there. It's just taking the moment and the trust that you too will find the answer, and then your signal can become your guiding star to really become your medicine, and you can shift it from within, rather than looking outside of yourself for the solution again, in terms of medication. Or no, I mean, don't get me wrong, sometimes it is necessary, but awareness and interconnectedness can already shift so much, as a first instinct. And then, if necessary, of course, medical advice is always recommended. But once you start to be connected again, you will notice you won't need the doctor anymore, because your body's intelligence will be supported again by yourself, and will say, yay, I can do my thing again, and it can heal itself. And that's fantastic. I haven't been for a doctor in God know how many years, and I'm grateful, and I'm so blessed. But it's how you perceive and what you believe is possible from within, and feeling that you're also guided, in every layer of your being. You have your soul field, your heart field, your body, your nervous system, Mother Earth, the cosmos, the elements. They all have to dance together, and then that's how the signals can be your allies. Yeah.
So it's interesting because you were talking about coming into yourself. So really you're cluing into the electrical field of who you are, which is on the outside, but you're finding that inner signaling, and rather than into the structure, because it could be, oh, I'm going to go to the pain in my elbow, but instead you're going into that heart center and connecting in with that resonance and that coherence, and then how that coherence is resonating out into the organ systems, rather than the pain in the knee and focusing on that, but going into those organ systems. And as you were saying about the inner smile, finding that joy frequency that is sitting within those organs. Just as I say that, my stomach is just like turning into bubbles. It awakens. It's like when we look at each other and we smile and say, hi, I see you, that everything else wakes up in that same fashion. And that's a different connection to the inside than I'm going to go for a walk and I'm going to make my limbs move, or I have this lower back pain, it's always there. That kind of thought into the structure. So I just wanted to bring those ideas forward because you so beautifully just brought that idea of the resonance inside and
Yeah.
what that means. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it is very important, because again, also the organs, they're not just things, they are living frequency, and each one of them has a spirit, a soul. So ultimately it's a soul again, it's frequency. So they're so happy to be connected consciously, and to be grateful for. I thank my organs daily for all the work they do, and the muscles and the joint, the whole body structure inside, because
Hmm.
they're my best friends, because that's what I have to walk this planet, this life. So yeah,
Hmm.
make them your best friends, and the health will follow automatically.
As you were saying that, I was picturing a skeleton, and that skeleton kind of being all that's left, right?
Yeah.
And you can think of yourself that way, or you can think of yourself as full of friends.
Yeah, exactly.
That that changes the skeleton when it's full of friends. Yeah.
It will, and it will be happy and joyfully until your last breath. Is not that decay that many people live by after a certain age. It's like I don't know. I don't believe that. Definitely not.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we take the conversation from that frequency within, rather than so much as these are just body parts and this wholeness, then if we go to another layer of the healing journey, which is the multidimensional part,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't require belief systems or labels. It requires openness and curiosity, which you're talking with joy. You can feel the exuberance of it. So when people are getting into that kind of living, then they have their guidance that comes through intuition, synchronicities. I always have an extra dime on my lipstick when I'm preparing for things. I have visitors that come with objects. There's dreams, inner knowing, a sense of support that is felt. And this guidance doesn't take control, but it certainly becomes an awareness. So, can you share a little bit more about this multidimensional? Because for anybody that's just back at just getting through their day, there's a whole new concept to look at. What are daily practices that give you this multidimensionality?
Yeah, it's my favorite topic because it really describes life as it is. So we have the most tangible, the 3D reality. That's what we see. That's our physical body. But we have all the other dimensions and layers, and does not necessarily only mean the universe and the stars and our angels, ancestors, guides, but this is also the earth, Mother Earth, the elements, the crystals. Crystals are amazing allies in healing as well, because they also carry the frequency that your cells, your DNA remembers. So just even using crystals on you, or infusing your water with crystals, is another way of bringing in that multidimensionality in your 3D reality. Because what it does, it will lift up your frequency. And again, that's all we need, is a higher state of frequency, so we're not in that low dense frequency where then the thoughts become heavy and ultimately sickness kicks in and all that. You can slowly start by noticing things. For instance, numbers, the clock. So many people say, I always look at the clock, it's 11:11, it's 17:17. I
Mm-hmm.
just know that's a signal of your multidimensionality. We all have our family of angels, guardian angels, star family, because we all, once upon a time, we have stardust in us. So we have many allies in that respect, but also the plants. If you have your plants in your home, or your pets, again, I do also energy healing for pets, because the way my teacher described it so beautifully, our pets' souls are here on earth to basically help humans balance emotions. And it is really true. When you not feel well, your pet will come close, and they automatically transform that emotion. And the big difference between a human and a pet is that a pet can transform that emotion so quickly, whereas with us, we can carry it for the rest of our life. So that's even a very domestic example of multidimensionality. I love all. I love to be connected with the earth and the elements in the earth, but I also love to drift off in the other in the other dimensions above me. And a great example is babies, by the way. because when a child is born up about till the age of 7, the crown chakra and the soul star chakras, they're very much still connected with the higher dimensions. And so when your little baby is talking blah, 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 that is actually, that's light language. This is just light codes that are being pronounced, and that is the authentic language of a multidimensional being, which we slowly start to remember. And it was quite exciting not long ago. Light language comes out when I do my energy healing. I start to remember my own light language. We all, again, have that memory in us. And this is how people lived in the millions of years ago and thousands of years ago in Atlantis and Lemuria. This is thousands of years ago. This is not that long ago, ancient Egypt. They just connected and communicated through frequency and telepathic communication. There was not the verbal word. So if we start to remember that sound, for instance, singing is another example of reaching multidimensionality. The om, chanting the om, it's the universal sound. So you bring that in and you do that, your whole heart, your nervous system calms, your pineal gland will start to be activated, so your intuition starts to kick in. These are all little practices that are so. Probably you say, oh, yes, that, and yes, that, I know that, and I know that, and yes, I have a rose quartz crystal here right by me. Use them, because they'll really support you in that shift of your own multidimensionality, implementing in your reality what you know as your nowadays life.
You were reminding me of a time I was driving to teach a workshop and I couldn't stay awake. So I thought, well, I'll just stop at the one gas station that there was in this long stretch in the mountains, and I thought I'll get a black tea and that'll perk me up. Of course, this is ahead of my tea company, so understanding caffeine, etc. Um, but I went in to get the tea, and I walked over to the rock display, and you see them in all the souvenir shops, the polished rocks that are over in the corner, and they have, their meaning on them. And I walked over and I picked up a quartz crystal and I paid for it. And I got out to the car and I thought, what am I doing? Why did I walk out of the store with this rock? And this is ahead of understanding frequencies within rocks. And I put that in my lap and I was awake for the whole rest of the trip. It was the most amazing experience. And that whole trip, as I was going to teach Touch for Health, so I'm teaching a physical energy tool, transported me into the quantum field. And it was on that decision-making process of not choosing the black tea, but choosing a rock, that I transitioned myself out of that 2-dimensional into that 3-5-dimensional opportunity.
Yeah.
And of course, again, it's ahead of having my teas now with intention infused, music infused, everything that happens with the teas. That was just a tea sitting on the shelf. But anyway, thank you for that memory, because I hadn't thought of it as being a portal where I made a decision that moved me from one space to the next. And I so appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and a beautiful example of how your soul, your inner knowing knew that already, but you just weren't consciously aware of it yet. And now it's that aha, and later you start to realize it. But yeah, I think it's just what we need is the trust that we know it, and just the trust to follow our gut feeling so much more often, rather than what we believe to do and have it all try to explain it logically in the mind, and then it would flow a lot more more in flow and expansive, and that's when you are in the multi-dimensional field.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. As as the listeners are going through maybe some thoughts of when they've made similar kinds of choices, I just want you to bring yourself into where you've made the choices and where you haven't made the choices. You haven't given yourself the freedom to choose again that way, because I want to take us to past patterns and soul lessons. So Anne has an opportunity to dive us into this area. And so this is where we have repeating patterns in our health, our relationships, and our life circumstances, and where we've gone from a spiritual perspective. We might have unresolved emotional experiences, ancestral or family dynamics. We might have some soul level lessons that are waiting to be integrated. So when we view healing through these lenses, the question can shift. So instead of asking, what's wrong with me? On the quantum level, we can go to what is asking to be seen, softened, or understood. And then that shift can produce a significant change. So, Anne, do you want to share a little bit about how people can shift this kind of questioning or this consciousness that they're working with?
Yeah, I think exactly what you said. Sometimes, like you say, it may be ancestral or taken over from parents or something. And what always comes up is, yeah, my parents had it or my mother had it, so I have it too. And again, that is it's an identity that you don't have to carry. And actually, it's an invitation for you now to say, okay, let me look at this from a distance. What is that pattern and how can I transform that? Because once you shift that frequency within yourself, it can shift for the whole lineage, past and also present and future. So you're actually doing a massive work as a light work, as a frequency shifter for humanity, where everybody will benefit from. So I just want to share that also, because the more you are aware of that, it's so worth to start working on these patterns, and just shift them, and again choose that other timeline. So yeah, if it is a repeating pattern, let's say health or wealth or relationship, again, I could go over it a little bit step by step. It's a nice little exercise. Maybe I share that with you. So I would just invite you down. Let's say um, this is the pattern. So we identify it. So this is the pattern of health. My mother has asthma, so I have asthma as well. So we identify this is the pattern of health. And then you close your eyes and then you just breathe in slowly. And just by taking a couple of conscious breaths, you're gonna already tell your body, close your eyes, touch your heart with one hand or your belly. And you just ask your body, when this pattern shows up, where do I actually feel this inside the body? And just close your eyes, and maybe you will start to feel some sensation around the lungs, if we're looking at the example of the asthma. And so I invite you to place your hands on that part of your body, and you're just consciously gonna breathe into it and smile into that area. Just make already connection and just tap into the body memory that is speaking now right with you. And notice the story. What is the story my mind tells me when this happens? So when you have your asthma attack, yeah, my mom had it. That's going to be your story that your mind tells you. So basically, what the underlying message is like, I'm not safe, I'm not healthy. So it's again a mental layer of the pattern that we now touch. So, and don't judge it, just let it be, thank it and smile to it. And then focus your attention on your heart, because this is the seat of your soul. And just feel your soul inside your heart as a wise, friendly part of yourself. And ask the soul, what is the lesson? What shift is it not necessary to focus me into the heart? What shift do I need to make? So imagine your soul sitting there and just smiling back at you. And just ask your soul, if this pattern is something that need to teach me, then let me know, what is it that I need to be looking at? Is it self-identity? Is it coming up more for myself? Is it trust? Speaking your truth? Could be any of that. So let the first word that comes to mind, let that be, that's your soul's message, your soul lesson. It will pop up. And that is the true frequency underneath the pattern. And then as a last step, you're going to choose just one thing, one tiny new action that is going to make the shift. So ask your soul, because your soul knows it all. What is the one small action I can take this next week, let's say, that honors this lesson? And so it could be anything that comes up that your soul wants, and you can write it down. And you're just gonna breathe into that. And so with that message, you're gonna even implement it. Maybe if it is, breathe deeply and consciously 3 times a day, or go outside in nature more. Just take that little step of action and implement it daily, and start to really reconnect that trust that your soul knows what's best for you, to shift the pattern, because then the pattern ultimately becomes your path, and it's going to be your medicine for transformation. And when others gonna notice that, you might also be able to help others if that's something that you really want to do. So embody it, and be grateful for it. And so trust your soul, because the soul is the ultimate highest and best, wants the best for you, and is your highest frequency. So if you always act out of that pure love state, the shift will happen instantly.
That was beautiful. And I just went into the journey.
Yeah, yeah, and this is just a tiny little exercise. Um, if listeners would want more guidance, there is also the Chiron life path reading that will be very helpful for that I do, where it's your Chiron basically placemat by birth is where your soul's lessons are, the deepest wounds, the shadow side, what can be transformed in this lifetime as an invitation. So if you find you might initially want the first hand of help for guidance, that could be something, but know that it's all within you, and that this exercise can already help you shift so much just by doing that yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had the experience of going to my knees, and then the story of, I danced on cement, and so, the story that I can easily play is,
Yeah.
I have these injuries because of all the ways that I was trained. But then you led me to generational, and it was like, oh, my great grandmother on her knees washing the floors, and my great great grandfather training horses, and the pressure on his knees. I don't know anything about training horses, but that was the image that came in. And so that weaved me into this pattern of working hard and working until the knees hurt. And I was like, okay, now that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now, to take us back to the opening conversation about how we try to heal always from that physical component, I could work on the physical aspects of my knees. But while those stories are playing, I can do all the physical aspects I want, but those stories are still going to lead and they're still going to hold tight. So that was one piece that you introduced as a way to come around that. The second part that you said, which I understand it, but I hadn't really thought about it in this way, is that going out into nature. So we say go out into nature, and then people think, oh, I'll go for a walk, I'll go look at the sky, I'll breathe some fresh air, and then I've connected to nature, and off they go.
That's it.
But instead, thinking about the frequencies that surround you while you're standing there, and
Yeah.
so many different frequencies, and you're giving your body the opportunity to connect to the frequencies, because so much of us we're indoors or we're in the car, we're cut off from those frequencies, and the time spent in those frequencies allow us to transform. So you
Yeah.
gave us a lot fed into that space. So I'm hoping these examples help people see how we've been trained in our thoughts to think physical or think psychological, and those parts need to be fixed, rather than how do we fit in that hole? How do we fit in that quantum field? How do we connect to that quantum field? And
Yeah.
how do we
And just
connect in
by
nature?
change that frequency, yeah, like you say, that long held frequency of your ancestors, that can be changed. That is through healing work, or through regression work, whatever you prefer to do, but you can shift that. It doesn't have to be carried with you and on to the next generations, and that's the beautiful thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then the healing on the physical level will automatically follow. That's the actual result of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay, we
Yes.
have gone on a beautiful journey.
Yes.
You wrapped it so lovely back around to how we've been led to believe we should be looking at healing and our wellness. And I know that the idea of the spiritual aspect of healing is so hard to qualify or quantify. But when we go back to frequency and see how we can bring that forward, it's so freeing to understand that we have control over that. We have the ability to engage with it, to stand in it, to decide that we want to be a part of it, or not, and
Yeah.
then what
Yeah.
that means for us. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
beautiful. Okay, so as we close off, we wanted to share a home exploration. So one, you gave us a beautiful exercise. So I'm hoping people will go back to it, and maybe other body parts will appear, other ideas, and you'll start to shake some layers off from there. But let's look around where your energy is at the moment, and let's walk you through a couple of things that you can do. So where's your energy now? I'm thinking about where I was with my energy at the start, which I have had a wonderful energy day. So it was higher, but you have brought me into a different feeling or sense of that. Is your energy where you want it at the moment? So all those people listening. And then how are you feeling about being prepared for your week or for a project? Where do you notice that there might be some angst in your activity? And then can you identify where in the body it appears to be stuck or heavy, and where it might be light or fluid, to get you to those ideas? And then we would just ask you once a day, pause and ask, same as how Anne brought you through your exercises with that heart center. What are you thinking about at the moment? What emotion shows up in the body? Where am I physically feeling that emotion? And what would help me soften it instead of pushing? And this is your quick fix or your quick attention to changing how you're going to react to the things going on around you. We don't want any fixing, no judging. You're just going to notice. And this practice is going to move you into that coherence and move you to the exercise that Ann presented so that you'll be able to advance and you'll recognize it in your present every day. And then you'll be able to come back to this section of the podcast and be able to engage with it. And did you want to add anything else to that?
No, and just remember you are limitless, so you can do anything you set your mind to. That's for sure.
Beautiful. All right, with this, thank you for joining us to episode 2 of Healing Through Spirituality. And remembering today's affirmation that came from the T, soften the desire to push through with confidence and an authentic self-love, welcome the peace within. This is bringing that quantum resonance in to your heart center and then radiating out into the physical structure. In episode 3 coming up, we're going to explore awakening, purpose, and how to live with your soul switched on in a grounded and practical world. And until then, we encourage you to be gentle with your body, curious with your energy, and compassionate with your becoming. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Be well, everyone.